families can be together forever through Heavenly Father's plan.
I'm so glad when Daddy comes home, glad as I can be. I'm so glad when Daddy comes home, glad as I can be. I'm so glad when Daddy comes home, glad as I can be. I'm so glad when Daddy comes home, glad as I can be. I'm so glad when Daddy comes home, glad as I can be. I'm so glad when Daddy comes home, glad as I can be.
Alright, Travis Wayne Goodsell. Now that I have upgraded 2 of my computers, just waiting for them to fail. Windows sucks. And you know they have the perfect systems that they are using, because there's no way they would sell and upgrade crap if they themselves had to run that same crap. They would know the problems and the errors that they're facing and would have them fixed, so that we then would have it fixed. But no. So they have to have a better system, and they just refuse to give it to us. Another problem is that, if you remember, right before the election, Microsoft warned of Russia's attempts to hack our voting machines, and had disabled the Russian tick bots, I guess they were called. And in response, Russia then attacked our hospitals across the nation, putting ransomware on all of their systems. Well, the reason why they're doing old school viruses is because the hospitals and the voting machines don't use, TikTok apps or social media site apps or any of that other stuff that we, the regular people, use. Because if you remember, way back in the day, this knucklehead named Ajit Pai, who's in charge of the FCC, he decided he was going to do away with net neutrality. And the minority Democrats on that committee gave out severe warnings to the public that they were unable to stop because they were in the minority vote. And of course the media has long since forgotten it, as it's now the new normal. That seems to be the word of the day, the new normal. Let's forget the past. Let's not blame those responsible and just accept the new normal, called gaslighting. And so, yeah, what we fail to understand here in America is that Europe all banned what's called cookies. And the reason why is because all the apps that the hospitals and the voting machines don't use have cookies. And those cookies allow them to spy and hack and plant anything they want on our computer hard drives. It's not just looking at our browsing history anymore. And so in order to use the systems and the sites, you have to accept their cookies. It's extortion, but this enables third-party sites that do advertising for example, such as Russia, to also have access to our hard drives. And as a result, the viral programs, antiviral programs, are useless now, because they just bypass them through the apps, because the viral programs don't check the apps, because there's nothing there other than, hackers are able to now access our hard drives through the app features, steal our data, sell them to Russia, plant gay porn or child porn, depending on whether you're Travis Wayne Goodsell or the Salt Lake Airport director, and do all sorts of damage to our computers if they wanted to. And so, I'm kind of surprised that I didn't hear any problems with our election. So it looks like there were some defenses posted against Russia to protect us. So thank you for your service. But no thank you for not restoring net neutrality. I hope the new Democratic president will fire the Ajit Pai with his little squirt gun Christmas dance, so that we can restore net neutrality and do away with all these cookies that are stealing our data and setting people up who seem to go against certain authoritarian governments and religions. But and so when Mormons grow up, we have the Book of Mormon, and it's referred to as the Iron Rod, and it's the most correct of any book on the earth, because a man will draw nearer to God, not because it's historically correct or grammatically correct or scientifically correct. No, because it draws you nearer to God, because it talks all about the Christ and his second coming, which is not really a second coming, but they don't want to tell you that. They didn't want to tell us that, because yes, I'm Mormon. I don't go attacking Jews, Christians, Muslims. I attack Mormons, because they betrayed me. Not because they lied about Joseph Smith being a 14-year-old child rapist. No, because they literally attacked me when I came to them and said, hey, Joseph Smith is a translator. Isn't that awesome? Church is true. Nope. Instead, they came out with the Gospel Topics essay, Translation and Historicity of the Book of Abraham, to try to diffuse my claims that Joseph is a translator. The church is true because Joseph is not a translator. Yeah, okay. And so the Book of Mormon, as a result, has a lot of stories about good examples of human behavior and about bad examples of human behavior. And if you're going to draw nearer to God by abiding by its precepts, one would therefore assume that because the bad guys, well, that's actually a tragedy, because the bad guys win in the end. The Jaredites are destroyed, Jerusalem is destroyed, the Nephites are destroyed. Yeah, it's a Shakespearean tragedy. They all drink the Kool-Aid in the end. But You would think that Mormons would learn from this. That if you do the bad examples, you're going to get the same destruction results that the Book of Mormon is warning about. So it's trying to tell you, don't drink the Kool-Aid, Mormons, even though it's really good as a sugary drink, especially for those of us whose DNA can handle sugar. But yeah, let's go over some examples and see how well Mormons are doing in following the different examples. I could have started with Layman and his complaining. I guess we'll talk about that. I have Great Abominable Church up first. And so you have Layman, son of Nephi, or Lehi, sorry. He's the birthright blessing son. It is his right to rule the tribe when his father dies. That's the whole point and purpose, is they had tribal families back then. The family authority was passed from father to firstborn birthright blessing son. And that goes all the way back to the Egyptians, but we won't get into that. Even though the Book of Mormon says so, right at the beginning, language of the Egyptians. So thus we need to go to the Egyptian culture, language, practice, etc. Religion, government. And so Lehi comes out warning the Jews in Judah at Jerusalem after Babylon came in, conquered, turned Jerusalem and Judah into a tributary kingdom to Babylon. No longer a tributary to Egypt, they were now a tributary to Babylon, and placed King Zedekiah on the throne. And yes, it's a direct match to our day with the time date that they're giving us, because Lehi has a dream in which he sees the date for the sign of the Son of Man. But and yes, it's not an actual history, but we're going over the stories looking for good and bad examples. And so Layman is his firstborn birthright blessing son, and because the people, his own religion, want him dead, the Lord tells him in a dream, you've been faithful, but they want to kill you. You need to leave. So he takes his family, and they leave behind their treasure, and head off to the top of the Red Sea. And Layman is one who's already demonstrating his rebellion, his stubbornness, and apparently he gets it from his mother, so he's a mama's boy. If you don't read, you don't hear about how she freaks out, thinking her sons are dead, and blames Lehi for it, and uses the same types of arguments, calling him a visionary man, etc. So where did Layman get that idea from? His mother. So he's a mama's boy. Whereas Nephi grows up to be a father's boy, daddy's boy. But you see the contrast once Nephi is born. Nephi isn't just blindly, dogmatically obedient, because the first time, yes, you have to be dogmatically obedient, but you need to understand how to identify when you're being punked, versus when somebody's actually trying to teach and instruct and help and protect with their orders. And so there's a difference between an authoritarian leader and a righteous leader. And Lehi seems to demonstrate his righteousness rather than authoritarianism, whereas Layman clearly is exhibiting the traits of an authoritarian leader. And so, do Mormons follow Layman in trying to implement authoritarian rule and murdering those who oppose them? Or are Mormons, as leaders, trying to help everybody in their tribe under their authority? So then you look at Governor Herbert, who's a Mormon. He knows the Book of Mormon, I'm pretty sure. Who is he following? Is he following Layman? Or is he following Nephi? Well, how well has he done with this coronavirus? Uh-oh. Yeah, he's murdering us in order to command obedience of the people. He's victim blaming us if we get infected with this virus. And he says, hey, you guys weren't safe, therefore you're responsible. I wash my hands of you guys. I'm not to blame anymore. And it's eventually going to get so bad, he's going to hand it off to Cox to do it for him when he becomes governor. Cox will then say, I'm sorry, you guys have destroyed Utah by your disobedience in not being safe with this coronavirus. Therefore, I am shutting everything down. The church leaders will be able to flee the country because we were able to hold back Travis's lawsuit against them. Or we were able to kill him off, and so therefore there's no reason to have the church leaders flee to a non-extradition country. And so, yeah. So clearly, we see how the Book of Mormon can be applied as a tool to judge our fellow Mormons. We can't use it to judge other people, because other people don't have the Book of Mormon, they don't believe in it, they don't follow it. But we can, in the general sense of knowing what is bad behavior. But for Mormons, Mormons can be judged by the Book of Mormon. This is why I do my videos. I use the Book of Mormon to judge Mormons and the church. That's why Mormons cannot confound me like the righteous prophets with the Antichrist, which is another example, because we can go to Korihor in Alma chapter 30, and he throws out a whole bunch of philosophies of men mingled with scripture, and the prophet condemns him, confounds him, and yet his philosophies are what caused the destruction of the Nephites, as they were carried over into what became the Kingmen and the secret Gadiant band. And so let's look at the great and abominable church. The Mormons get distracted by saying, oh, it must be the Catholics, the Holy Roman Empire of Constantine. Yeah, if we generally apply it to any religion. Are they doing this, which is a bad religious activity and behavior, versus the good religious activity or behavior and actions of a righteous church? as Alma, again, in chapter 32, has to discuss with the poor Zoramites who were denied entrance into the ritual performance of bearing testimony with a rote testimony at the Rameumptom. And so again, you don't look for a church that has a Rameumptom and they call it a Rameumptom. You're never going to find it. You have to say, okay, wait a minute. Is there an organization where the members get up in their congregation and repeat the same rote saying, similar pattern of speech that demonstrates their being self-righteous and excluding people such as the poor from attending the rituals. Now, in the Mormon church, obviously anybody can attend church, except I've witnessed at my own congregation, back when I was attending, when a black man would come to church, immediately I would overhear other Mormons who rushed to welcome him to church and say, "Have you heard about the Genesis group?" Yeah. While being locked away indefinitely, I overheard my fellow cellmates welcome newcomers who did not speak English in a manner in which I cannot say for a YouTube video. But if you want a clue, it's very similar in meaning when in Mars Attacks, the movie, in the Nevada scene, where they have these translator devices that they're carrying around with them along with their blaster guns, and the device is saying, "Don't run, we're your friends." So think of that as the manner in which Mormons confront new blacks that attend their congregation for the day, and then go and tell them if they've heard about the Genesis group. Yeah, no segregation or racism here in Utah. No slavery. We got rid of it from our Constitution, just barely. And so, yes, are Mormons? Exactly. And here you have in verse 6 of 1 Nephi chapter 13 about the great and abominable church. The devil is the founder of it. Well, how do you know if the devil is the founder of an organization? Does the devil actually appear and say, "Hey, my church, come on in. I've got a plan of salvation for you"? No. Never does that. That's why they talk about wolves in sheep's clothing. They never appear as the bad guy. Trump is the only exception in all of history. Who literally says, "Hey, I'm a wolf. I want to devour all you sheep." And the sheep go, "Yay! Vote him 4 more years, 4 more years." Just mind-boggling how he was able to fool everybody. But for the Mormon church, what is our symbol, Mormons? We don't wear crosses. So what is our symbol? Oh, Nelson created a symbol for us in the April conference, Travis. Yeah, okay. You want to go there first? Let's go there first. What is the cornerstone? It's Jesus, right? Jesus is the cornerstone of our church, right? Oh, it's not? The church is the cornerstone of the church? Oh. Well, is Jesus a part of it? Oh, he is. Oh, okay, so he's part of the foundation, with the cornerstone still being the church. He's not. Jesus isn't even the foundation? Well, where is he? Oh, he's what's created, carved in stone, because it's the Christus, on top of the foundation cornerstone, which is the church. Oh, right. Okay. And you still think the church is true. The brainwashing has a great hold on getting Mormons to not understand their scriptures. When the devil is the founder of it, you need to understand the devil's playbook. And just so happens, we do have the devil's playbook in the Mormon church. It's in the revised revision of the King James Bible in Moses, chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. In there is the additional information of Lucifer's plan of happiness. Take away agency, force obedience, force compliance, issue punishments to keep people in line, and everybody can be exalted in the highest degree of the celestial kingdom. And so, do our parents therefore allow us our agency as children? If we choose to go to a lesser kingdom, I don't want to get married. I don't like her. She's mean to me. No. Parents freak out. Tell us we're evil. Condemn us. Punish us. Blah, blah, blah. If we are not compliant and obedient to our marriage covenants, to one man and one woman, right? Why do we still have section 132 again? Because it says I can have 10 virgins. And so, again, why are Mormons taking people's agency away when they know whose doctrinal plan of happiness that is, which they know leads to misery, which they know leads to death, which they know leads to destruction? Why are Mormons still utilizing what is destructive? Why do Mormons use ad hominem attacks on people who say, oh, isn't that a Lucifer's sign carved in stone on your temple in Salt Lake and Nauvoo and Logan? Oh, look at that. There's an eagle on top of a beehive on top of an obelisk that's pointing down instead of up, and then there's an inverted pentagram of Lucifer in there also. Okay. What do you mean I'm the devil? What? I just pointed it out. What do you mean? Yeah, you can't do that, Mormons. You can't get upset when somebody points out the truth to you. And so, with this great and abominable church, we see priestcraft involved. And I saw gold and silver and silks and scarlets and fine twined linen, all manner of precious clothing. They're filthy rich. But, as we read in 2 Nephi 26, is it? About priestcraft. It's that they set themselves up as religious leaders to get gain and praise, so money, and be accepted in society, but they don't take care of their people. Ezekiel, and I tried hard to remove all links to homosexuality, but failed, thanks to David Gaunt, or the current scriptures in English as well as now the foreign language ones as well, blame homosexuality for the destruction of Sodom. If Lot and his family, his wife turns back to Salt Lake City, turns into a pillar of salt, and the two daughters end up being impregnated as they had to get Lot drunk in order to have sex with him, and thus came the mocking nations of the Jews, Ammon and one other place. But I'm sure that wasn't a racist story whatsoever. It was prophecy about the latter-day Utah. And so, yeah, everybody thinks that, oh yeah, those guys, they wanted to have sex with the messengers. And Lot said, take my daughters. And we're all freaking out. Why are you giving them your daughters? Because we don't understand the Greek and Roman practice of temple worship, of which the story was written during that time frame. And no, Ezekiel tells us specifically they were rich and neglected the poor. That's why Sodom was destroyed. And so again, Mormons, remember that whistleblower? That was just for one of their over a dozen that we know of investment companies, Ensign Peak Associates. And that only deals with one source of income, which is tithing. And for tithing alone, they had obtained $100 billion, plus a $40 billion portfolio, and interest of $7 billion per year now. And that's how I know that they invest through Ensign Peak Associates, at least, into Google and Microsoft and all of those companies that are giving us grief with their analytical programs and their cookies. And so again, is the church acting like the great and abominable church? Or are they acting like the Church of the Lamb of God? This is not something you can pick and choose as to what you want to believe and what you don't want to believe in. This is what you have to accept. Because the church and Mormons are following the bad examples in the Book of Mormon. And we can go to Helaman 6, around the 20s, where it talks about the secret combination group that have secret signs, such as the inverted pentagram, and they have secret handshakes and signs and words and covenants. It's talking about the religious part of it. And so again, does the church have this? Yes, they do. Brigham Young added the endowment ceremony. This was not part of Joseph Smith. There were no loyalty oaths with Joseph Smith. We know that because of the last final testimony on the brand new audio recorder that was invented that Wilford Woodruff used. He screwed up, and so they rewrote it for him and still made the mistake of leaking information that today has now been, they thought, discarded, that Joseph Smith's endowment was just laying on of hands for washing and anointing. That's what's revealed with Wilford Woodruff's final testimony. as the church instead thinks that they had proven that the temple is from Joseph Smith. And they sort of overlooked the fact that, he revealed some things that somebody might figure out. I guess they were too distracted by the first mess up with whatever was in that first mess up. No, you can't reveal that. You'll blow everything. And so, he sees many harlots. Harlots are the desires of the great and abominable church. Is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints interested in more than one wife? Yes, they are. Like I said, we still have section 132. Nelson changed the law of chastity. And Brigham Young blamed Joseph Smith for secretly practicing even though he was busy running for his life and spending time in jail when all this secret polygamy was occurring. And yet, if you disregard your actual church history, if you say, no, Joseph was a good man, he wouldn't have gone to jail, that was the fake news media throwing him in jail, locking him up, you're going to miss when Heber C. Kimball gets sealed to a third wife during this time where Joseph's not around. Who sealed him? It can only be Joseph. Who sealed him? Exactly. Joseph knew nothing of it. Heber C. Kimball was a part of a group who called themselves Danites, who were secretly practicing polygamy behind Joseph's back, who were secretly getting Joseph in trouble by causing trouble in the surrounding neighborhoods. And so they got Joseph out of the way so that they can do their business. But none of the ex-Mormon historians go that far into their research. And so all they discover is that Brigham Young, Heber C. Kimball, Willard Richards, etc., all lied and covered up what was really going on. And so they just see, they say that Joseph Smith did actually have sex with that 14-year-old girl. He raped her. Okay, Joseph is a horrible person then. Because I believe the liar Brigham Young. Oh? What? What? See, that's how they deceive you. And so for the praise of the world, do they destroy the saints of God? Have you not been paying attention during this coronavirus as the saints are being destroyed? We're getting close to 700 dead. I had a loser, that's the nicest word I can come up with, who dared to put on my comments, which I hold all of them, if you haven't been paying attention, and for this reason. He is a coronavirus denier. Prove to me that people are dying. What? First of all, it's not me who has to prove it. Second of all, Herbert is on Trump's side. He's been following Trump. Trump said, stop counting people. Stop testing. Okay, Herbert stopped testing. Utah voted for Trump. And so, if they, who are following Trump, are loyal to Trump, are reporting that people are still dying with this virus, how then are they in on the plot against Trump? So people just don't think. That they think that they can fool people, gaslight them, into the reality of what's going on in the world. But yeah, there are already not just anti-maskers, but anti-coronavirus. They're deniers, coronavirus deniers. And who comes up with that? The bad examples in the Book of Mormon. The Antichrists. They're deniers. And so if you're a denier of truth, if you're anti-science, whose example are you following? The Antichrist. The bad examples in the Book of Mormon. Because for praise, for likes and subscriptions, do they destroy the truth? As people's lives are ruined. And you got these losers who think that they're funny and clever and smart by going around saying lies, gaslighting, deceptions, and just wait to see who they trigger. Because that's what they're doing. The guy wanted me to respond back angrily. Oh, you don't know. Gotcha. No. When people do this, they're the ones who got triggered by the truth. And so this is a horrifying situation as a Mormon, born and raised, who had read the Book of Mormon multiple times in his life, who knows the stories. I can refer to a story in a conversation with somebody. Oh yeah, that's like the Zoramites, when the Zoramites refused to let the poor Zoramites in their church. Or, oh, the Stripling Warriors, as I saw on the church news, as Ballard was talking about the Stripling Warriors, telling the youth to go out and war against people during coronavirus. What? What are you doing? Stop it. Leave them alone. They're kids. Go get their parents' permission first. But apparently the parents are okay with having a prophet of God, as they claim, tell their kids to go fight wars for the church. The church is under attack. This Travis guy, he's a real thorn in our side. Get him! Stand back and stand by. And so I wanted to start off by talking about Melissa, and I forgot to do that. I ended up talking about the cookies. So I'll talk about her now. See, I understood this from my youth, but it became very apparent with my first daughter, firstborn child. The birthright blessing daughter. See, Melissa was probably just over 2. And so, yeah, she was in what would be the terrible 2s. But you can actually, as parents, prevent the terrible 2s if you know how to properly raise your kids, communicate, talk with them, explain things in detail, involve them in decisions, help them understand how it is to be an adult. You can avoid the terrible 2s. But we had purchased, and I'm pretty sure it was my video, VHS tape, back in those days, of Cinderella. And Melissa, of course, had watched it numerous times. And then one morning, day, not sure when, I just remember the scene, the event. I must have just come home, maybe, because we were in the back door at the kitchen, or at the door also to go down to the basement. But I was there at that crossroads with Stephanie, and she was trying to tell me that Melissa did something bad, and I can't remember what it was she'd done. And I, as a father, I remember thinking, okay, I'll make a united front with you, even though I think you probably should back off. I don't think that's a very serious problem. Nonetheless, Stephanie calls Melissa over, and Melissa is I can already tell she suspects that she's in trouble because of the way her mother puts fear into her. And so Stephanie asked, "Do you know what you did wrong?" And she goes, "No." And she probably didn't, but it was just so cute. Because at 2 years old, she had the long, flowing, so cute, little girl. And then Stephanie called her a liar and said, "I don't want you doing that ever again." And then Melissa is tearing up like I am. And she turns and beelines it for the couch, where she does the She had seen the example from Cinderella, when Cinderella is denied going to the ball and given extra chores, and then runs out onto the back balcony to the bench out there, and Melissa used that scene to liken unto herself. I saw it immediately. And so the question is, why aren't Mormons using the good examples from the Book of Mormon to live their lives? Why are you so mean? Why are you so cruel, so abusive, so bloodthirsty, that you would destroy a person's life just to protect the lies and the evils of the church? It's a good thing I didn't talk about Melissa first. Wouldn't be able to get to the rest of the video. And so, because Stephanie got the kids, took them away to Canada, my kids have now turned on me. They have used the bad examples of their mother to think that I'm the bad guy. Just like the Lamanite descendants. They think the Nephites are the bad guys because they didn't let Laman rule over his own kingdom. Which, if they thought about it, they had to control the Nephites. They couldn't just say, "Hey, we've got a kingdom, we've got our own land. Why do we need to control them again?" "Oh, right, because we hunt and gather rather than do agriculture and construction work. Got it. We're lazy. We want slaves." And so this is the most bizarre thing as a Mormon that I cannot understand, is why Mormons think that there is happiness in doing wickedness, when the Book of Mormon clearly says it's not. Mormons are outright denying and defying and ignoring and disobeying the Book of Mormon. And the judgments are clear, and the judgments are happening. People are dying. Destruction is occurring, and Mormons are still in defiance to the very last breath. know.